Hi everyone. I want to first off thank Lucifer for his gift of enlightenment when I needed it to make this audiobook. It has no bounds. I was able to learn that through his wisdom, riches is not the most important thing in the world, but it's wisdom and what you're able to do with it to teach others and thus teach yourself. It's very rewarding, to say the least. All the demon companions I had ever made during these years is telling, and I thank them so much. In this audiobook that I created, it took so much time, so much effort, but it was worth it. Because for the empire in which Satan is a part of, I pledge my life, my blood, my soul, resources, energy, and time to uphold his empire in all things. It is also my hope that this audiobook, well, I hope that it guides you. It guides you to the path in which you are currently on, because the lessons are priceless. It's enduring. So please allow this material to be a part of your satanic library. It is my hope that it is an occult classic in your occult library. May we all walk down the left-hand path, venerating our demons that lead us to the light. Enjoy.
Chapter 1 Awakening. I remember when I was a young child, I kept on pondering what was good for me and what wasn't, especially when I felt lost. I felt without a spiritual path, a forsaking the right-wing religion of my mother's. This was the very first time I've done something that seemed to me at that time so reckless. It was recklessly so stupid, considering it only was just a mere 24 hours ago I left the church that held so much than just beliefs. I just couldn't take it anymore, so I left. Behind me was culture, a good life, family, everything I held so dear. For those who never was a part of a community where your religion is your life, it provides your house, your money, your potential lover, everything. I walked away from it all because I just could not hold my own mother's values when she passed away. It just wasn't for me. What brought this on, which I will not go on forever about, I done my best, even my worst, and so did the priests of that church and their God as well. In other words, there are no good guys here, just me with this fresh pain in my chest. Laying on my couch at home like a movie theater, my thoughts are showcasing right there in the middle of my third eye. Such pain, such loss of years that were just wasted, going by. I erased everything that I thought that this God had taught me. In fact, I saw it for what it was by doing research. It was just a high control group. And I just did everything that they wanted me to do. After all, I was just a young man at that time. Though pleasurable, I was alone. Mind you, I didn't even know how to take care of myself, let alone to think. That is what a high control religion does to people. No one is taught to think how, but what to think. It's all under their control. I beckon you, once again, to understand it was my values at that time. Once upon a time, that is. Moving and nodding my head on my couch, I said to myself out loud, if their God doesn't have the truth, then what does? I said angrily to myself, losing everything, trying to walk my own path as a young man. I lamented those words echoing my small apartment. Initiation was upon me without warrant, with crimson bright letters surveying my mind. The words were loud and daunting.
Satan, Satan, Satan,
Those words flashing, champion of this moment were those words, giving way to momentum, gnawing at me for the first time, getting me to go somewhere. I seen these words, but I was just baffled. I never heard of Satanism ever. Due to my upbringing, I only heard of Satan, but not in a form of religion or a spiritual path venerating him. It was simply out of the question for Christians. I was just isolated from the rest of the world. Yet I denounced that path and without knowing, venturing into uncharted territory. I was like, I was being told by a demon to go on the internet, use my smartphone, and do research about those two words. That I did. What I found was the joy of Satan side. I was very terrified and was shaking as if I saw Satan himself. Consequently, I was meshed with both excitement and fear. Sometimes one would prevail over the other, but mostly excitement because the information was just forbidden. Initiation, there were rites, there were witchcraft. Information about Satan was all here. I was amazed how much this webpage had such a huge pantheon of demons, all dedicated to them. What I never knew was here on this marvelous page. A lost history and deep respect for Satan was within me and with this group. This moment was almost as if it was courtesy. It was presented to me to admire, to hearken back. It was familiar somehow. Demons took me back to the time when I was a child and living with my family. I slept on a bottom bunk bed and my brother the top. It was dark and we were sound asleep, but suddenly the bed levitated. Seconds later, it was placed softly on the ground. My younger brother and I just laughed, as all young boys would behave, that is. My brother begged me to do it again, so I, being a little pompous, young and all, I said, well, I'll do it again, even though I knew deep down inside it was just impossible. Intuitively, I spoke out loud and I asked whomever or whatever to perform this feat again. To our shared little world, it was shaken once again. We laughed and was told to be quiet by our mother, being so loud and rambunctious due to that wonderful dark experience. As I was waking up slowly at the present, I thought to myself how the experience was wonderful for me at that time. But odd enough, I am now learning about the Goetia. More memories flooding my mind, almost like evidence or proofs that the demonic was always with me, watching me somehow. When I was younger, I would feel a presence, and no matter where I moved, that new home had my new demons with me. It was as if the old one stayed with me and I was introduced with new demons. Even in church, I knew that it was wrong to be entertained by the demons, but I always had an affinity for them. Research on this web page, that is the Joy of Satan, reaped so much fruit. Hence I say, this was my awakening at that time as a younger man. It was not long when I wanted to find my guardian demon. I joined a forum and was impressed with the people who shared my newfound but lost love for these infernal beings, whose only crime was to teach and guide those who are willing to learn. This group was popular amongst younger people, but hated by other Satanists. Though the ideologies were extremely opposed to me and my belief system, I loved what I learned. It took me a small amount of time until I ventured into what was the unknown and now my home at that time. I was writing sigils like it was no one's business and talking to demons in no time. I also found myself dreaming and physically seeing demons. The first I saw was Buer. There he was, right in front of me, Buer, shape-shifting, right in front of me. He had the face of that of a man. And yet, it just took me back, just a bit, of the old grimoires of Buer. But yet, this is my experience. There he was, in my bed, shape-shifting. Beautiful and dark, mysterious and mystique, all in one. At that one moment, I was simply taken back, amazed by this event. Occultists will tell you that they experience these things within their lucid dreams, and that within itself is amazing. But a physical manifestation? That was happening. And to make sure, I stretched out my left arm to touch his head. Though cool, it was holographic. And there it was, Buer, looking back at me, and I to him. All the years that I've spent while being a young man in the Church of Christianity, being told that these beings were evil. But yet, here I was looking back at him. All that beautiful dark affinity that I had toward these beings for all those years were all confirmed. It was just my awakening, my serenade.
Oh, you surely are the one who peers into the abyss. May you have peace. But young you are, but great you will become. A kingdom of demons you will become to us. We will all enter you. Never have you experienced such power.
And with that, Buer himself vanished. I was stunned profoundly. Till this day, this experience is one of many that keep me so strong on the left-hand path. When I need that extra push, I just think about that. Hell, if you too had experience like that, you'll feel the same exact way. The very next day, I also promoted my thoughts and beliefs about what I've learned on the Joy of Satan site. Well, they've appreciated there on that forum. But of course, I had a little bit of my own shady experiences there. Soon after, I went around in my neighborhood, basically giving the devil his due. I placed the printed articles that I worked tirelessly on to promote my ideas about the Infernal Empire, and I placed it under the doors of people in my neighborhood. But that took hours. But when it was done, I was definitely satisfied. And that day, that late evening, I performed my second ritual, my dedication ritual to Satan due to my own personal reasons. Finally, when it was the ending of the year, I met Satan himself. He appeared to me as a red dragon, as enormous as a mountain, and I was standing at the edge of some foreground. This huge, epic dragon had many heads, and above him was the blackest sky I had ever seen. Black ash swarmed all around me, and I was just simply awestruck, not afraid at all, even though I know this one fact, that this Satan was the one that I remember in the book of Revelation. Perhaps Satan figured while growing up that is how I pictured him. I mean, through Christianity, that is. And hell, it was fine with me, because seeing him in that form was quite badass. But now, suddenly, that dragon's head appeared in front of me, and I saw his eye, serpentine, and piercing through my very soul. I touched his left nostril with my arm and actually felt his scales. This moment was so epic. A bond was formed between me and Satan, together for life. For kicks and being playful, which I only read about on a website or hearing it by some other person, Satan placed my arm in his mouth and started to laugh. My arm wasn't torn in two, as one would think, but neatly placed between his teeth, and I was laughing profoundly myself. Satan was being playful, and I was expressing myself, and he was doing the same. This experience was teaching me something about him, his personality, but yet be forewarned that this is a potential power. Because remember, a fucking dragon. That huge, I could only imagine what power he could have done if I was his enemy. This experience was pleasurable nonetheless. This is a great example of how I could try to translate this to a layman, someone who doesn't know much about the occult. I would exemplify it by saying that we could look at a mighty tiger pouncing on a person to demonstrate its majesty and strength. But then this killing machine nudges you playfully, even lovingly, as a mother would do her cubs. But you would have to hope that it remains that way. Next, this great being, that Satan, allowed me to speak, so I hesitated a little. Then I spoke with deep respect. Again, a big fucking dragon. Satan, do you love me? I said, hesitatingly. How naive I was, but a trailblazer in my own relationship with the demons. For it is love that governs my motives for the occult. For I just love what I do. Sometimes they may give me a hard time and I give it right back. But all in all, I love it. Hence I spoke again. And I said to Satan, this time about if he would always be with me. He nodded yes. Well, since this experience was going good, I spoke again, for the third time. This was love at first sight. Then Satan would give his reply. Satan wisely made a humorous face, and I did not think that he would do this. In fact, I didn't even think it was even possible. Satan, once again, this raging badass, would have a sense of humor, a personality. But then, before I knew it, Satan himself got closer and wanted to speak something. And then when his mouth opened up, I listened.
You first must do inner work. Then that is when you find others. This is foremost, and then others will pursue you. In time, we will develop a friendship, just like now. But take heed, it is not easy.
Satan, I wondered if I could get great riches and wealth. Would you allow this? To my surprise, the dragon lifted his left leg up, and a mountain of treasure surrounded me. Satan had vanished, and I returned somehow to my small, shitty apartment. Who could have known that imagination is utilized for communication? That is to say that it is the way that demons communicate with us directly. Whenever you have a feeling about your environment or that extra push to read something, watch something on the television, that is the fiendish beings communicating with you. Listen to them. You will get your answers. From that day forth, I was working so hard for Satan and learning at his very feet many lessons. Never have I experienced this in the right-wing religion. I mean, Satan was actually doing this and directing me. For example, if I had a question, I didn't have to wait 20 years for an answer like I would do in church. He simply would answer it in his own ways. In other words, even though that he would encourage me by means of inspired ideas to direct me to a website to answer those questions, it was still him. No matter the reason, he was always there by any means. I was astounded by the many avenues I learned how the demons can communicate with me. Through the internet, people, signs on the buildings, numbers, you name it. Initiation was great, and I had my scars and lessons throughout this never-ending journey, but it is still all worth it. Even today I say this. This is my awakening. Now, I awoke. I used my power for the Infernal Empire to continue its agenda. The Gathering, Chapter 2. Time went by and I had so many other demonic teachers and friends as years went by. Beelzebub was the second great king I had and always will have the pleasure of meeting. This moment of my life was great. I met so many people along the way who assist me on this path. Jenny was a part of the Joy of Satan group that helped so much with my growth. She surely was, in my eyes, a high priestess because her devotion and her skills, much of what I learned was because of her. It was only years later I fully understood her lessons. At the time, all I can do is wait and learn. To my surprise, Satan told me that I was going to leave this group to be independent, which I could only imagine due to events that this group was under alleged conspiracies. I didn't understand because if this was a group that Satan had invented, then why did it end up this way? Sitting outside in the wilderness, myself and Jenny were eating a meal. I couldn't tell her that she had something to say. Not at all. But yet, she always has that way about her to surprise me. So Jenny interrupted my thoughts and asked, "What is troubling you?" I averted my gaze toward her soft, caring eyes and spoke to her. I said, "Joy of Satan is no longer what I want to do any longer." Just like that, I spat out those words as if I were disgusted by what I learned already of this group. I love the lessons, but to know I have to hate a race of people that I believe to be like another lot on this planet, that does not make any sense. Because if there was any other lot that was hated, would it not be the demons? So why would I return that hate to another group of people that done nothing to me? Well, it's not like I didn't know, but it was like a tsunami that I was merely trying to hold back, unequipped of its power, its potential harm. And that is to say, I'm not trying to play as innocent as if I never knew. It just kept on gnawing at me until I simply just had to leave. And then Satan agreed. But at this moment, Jenny calmly told me, "If that is your wish, cool. However, may I ask what is wrong? Did someone offend you?" Jenny was different than the others of the group. Hell, she knew what she was talking about with the demonic. After all, I owed her these parting words due to her teaching abilities. My heart beat steady and my mind was focused on a direct, distilled answer without any blemishes. I spoke up and said, "Satan told me to leave this group and start my own ziggurat of occult teachings. I wanted to share my information with others about the Infernal Empire. This is not goodbye, but I have to follow this decision." Jenny fulfilled that I wasn't walking away from Satan himself, but to further his glory to others, but in my own way. Her hands were no longer a fist of pain, or even a crutch in case my departure was earth-shattering. Jenny smiled as I sighed of relief and told me herself that, well, Satan is wonderful, isn't he? Jenny was a woman who had much going on in her life. People were afraid of her. People planned to have her killed. Others spoke poorly about her. Her kids taken from her and then reunited. Husband also fighting his own battles. Though we remained friends and communicate, she was and always will be a great teacher to me and help as well. Jenny and I left this small but isolated location where the sun was always on our backs and the trees were just so breathtaking, so beautiful. Perhaps they were oak trees. As we were walking, Jenny and I heard not just loud foreign language, but a person doing ritual. It was pretty elaborate. This female magician had her black robe on and knife that looked kind of like a wand. The aesthetic was just simply badass. Her fire pit was there as well, and she was chanting these Revi words: Zor Zodu Goel Todeke Imel Kano Kawada. Her chant was interrupted by us watching her and waving her sword in the air. It was beyond me at that moment in life, but I felt insidious energy flow through me as this event was unfolding. The mysterious figure turned around and looked at Jenny and myself. She pulled back her hood, and to my surprise, she was quite pretty. I bet taller than myself, and that she was. All chips on the table. Me and Jenny just looked at each other. This woman, though, she walked up to us and smiled and bowed down to us. The gesture reminded me of Asian culture. Never mind that, though. I was just simply excited and was interested in what she was doing. I had to speak, so I just had to ask for her name first, with a smile to be courteous and polite. I said to her, "You seem very competent in your craft. May I ask your name? Please," I said hesitantly. She looked at me with the bluest eyes I've had ever seen. Her chestnut-colored hair was full and pouring out of her hood. She blinked once and wet her mouth, then spoke to me. She says, "Daniela is my name. I was doing ritual out here. I thought I was by myself." She said, "This is what I do, right here in this situation with a fire pit and smoke coming out. I just simply love it. Do you?" Daniela picked up a bottle of water and drank. She spilled some on herself and chuckled a little bit. We all just sat there, laughing. We brushed away the tense atmosphere. Then, Jenny, which is her custom, interrupted, spoke up. She said, "The language you spoke was very impressive. We both were moved as you performed ritual with such devotion, as if you'd done this before. No, like it was your heart singing to the gods." Daniela replied, "Yeah, it was. The second key, it's Enochian. I wasn't finished, but my safety comes first, you know. You guys did come out of nowhere," she said with a smile. She pulled her hair back and then smiled some more at me directly. Jenny replied, "I wish if we could join or do a small ritual or something, implying, hinting something." Jenny, always a pioneer for the black arts, also so ready to venture into the abyss, much like myself. Daniela replied, "Sure. Though this is sudden, we can conjure one of the gods from the Goetia. They are fond of me, and I get the feeling you know them intimately. I will indeed allow the guy that is with you take the lead on this marvelous venture. I will offer a sacrifice." That was the first time I had ever gotten involved with a ritual that involved sacrifice. Only my own blood or a food offering. My chest felt tight, and I almost blacked out for a second until I seen a small person. He seemed to be a goblin of sorts. I thought I was poisoned or something, but I don't remember taking anything of that sort. The figure was walking toward me. He was all beige and huge. And when I mean by huge, I meant his eyes. They were like soft and inviting. The color was orange, and he appeared beside me. He had such a small voice and told me the events that will follow is good for me. Daniela looked at me with a smirk, and she also appeared baffled and looked back at her, but she knew that I was seeing something, but I couldn't quite make it out. So she turned around and was at work, and I did the same. There was no going back. For at this moment, I couldn't just back out, be some pussy in front of two very beautiful women. We all did our part. Daniela had blood that she had prepared already before she met us. Jenny was going over her words of chant. I thought I would go by a nearby stream and put water over myself to represent respect and being clean before the gods. I had in my pockets a marker, and I had written on my body a sigil that I designed that made me feel so powerful. So now, once I was done, I walked back to the small group of women, and they told me it was so official now. It was on. That I showed my leadership and all my devotion to this ritual. The ladies got into position, and I started my words of power, always by singing. Each of us done the same. We all planned what to say and focused on other important activities beforehand. We wanted to speak to Lord Paimon. It took some time, however. We all felt a surge of energy, a fiendish, dark current that wanted to come within our vicinity. In other words, we knew he was here and he was present. The ladies too kept chanting and did not hold back. I was surely impressed by them. For Lord Paimon's own reasons, he caused each of us to go into a trance or something of that nature, because I was no longer with the ladies, but in a black universal. A sound screeching behind me, then in front of me. The sound was omniscient. Paimon appeared to me with a middle-aged man as his form, dressed in a Middle Eastern garb. He was at least 10 feet tall, and his voice was booming, launched forth at me like cannon fire. He appeared to be faceless, or at least in this form.
Speak.
With deep respect, sir, I was hoping to work with you because you seem to be someone that could do wonders and amazement within my life. I would not mind working with you if you so wish.
I will not obfuscate with you. In order for mankind's intentions to manifest, we must take action towards making those intentions a reality in our physical world. Your actions must match your intentions, and when your actions and intentions are aligned, the possibility for your instant manifestation arises. In short, we must take action towards making our dreams come true. They are not just going to magically arrive on your doorstep without some effort on your part. We all must take the first step, and the Infernal Empire will act in accordance with your action. We take a step, and the Infernal Empire responds.
At this point in my career, I was simply amazed by what Lord Paimon said. It reminded me a while back that Lord Satan directed me to Lightworkers to learn about the laws of the universe. Even though I only had to learn from them and nothing else, it was so interesting that Lord Paimon said the same exact thing. It was almost as if it was a kind reminder. At that, King Paimon came closer to me. He bent over, looking straight into my eyes, and then said,
For centuries, humans given lavish attention to the specifics of punishment and left heaven woefully unsketched. The fabric of space-time is a conceptual model combining the 3 dimensions of space with the 4th dimension of time.
This was not random, not a coincidence. I was thinking how this information has any connection to me. In fact, it dawned on me that I asked such a question but never received the answers. Until now. Both topics at first felt random, but was not. The idea of a possible heaven, and not this idea that Christianity has fed for me for all these years, well, it wasn't an issue for me. But the fact that it was brought to my attention was amazing. Now, I have an answer. King Paimon continues to speak.
There are many planes of existence. Culture merely utter them in their practice. The gods exist outside of time, and we observe and mold what we want. Our influence over humans can be seen when called upon, just like in this moment with you.
And with that, Paimon vanished, as well as the dark universe I was in. When I opened my eyes and came to, the fire was going out. The other two woke up in time. We all spoke about our own experiences with Lord Paimon. Each of us laughed and felt very happy. Jenny told me as we parted from Daniela on our way to my car that she was indeed swept away from Paimon's power. She said he told her to be a good wife, and the other, well, the advice was she hesitated to tell me reluctantly. Jenny said Paimon is intense and has a presence about him that is demanding and deserving of respect. She then told me what I figured Wen would keep to herself. And whatever that was that she decided to keep to herself, I didn't pry until Jenny gazed at the ground and said, I had my children taken from me again, but Paimon assured me we will reunite. I knew nothing at all about this because I felt ill, never seeing them again. Jenny looked at me and smiled and dried her wet little face. Daniela, walking up behind us to her car, she did not realize, but she had a number over her head, and the numbers were constantly changing. Jenny wanted to say something, but the nearby traffic was very loud, and a car even rudely pulled up next to us just to be a dick to us, cursing and everything. Which again, if you're like myself, coincidences, well, they don't exist. Something led that maniac toward us. Before we knew it, Daniela was gone, in her car, upset and pulling off. I wish I could have spoken more with her. Her experience was daunting. She wanted to know about her own safety. Her boyfriend was abusing her constantly. Back at the ritual site, Daniela told us, and I tried to connect her experience with King Paimon and the numbers on top of her head. Perhaps it meant the longevity of that abusive relationship. I know Paimon encouraged her to leave him, or else she will remain dead inside and not live a life at all if she remained. I will never know for sure, but hope she is fine and well and safe. The very next day, I showed my appreciation for the Infernal Empire of Hell on my own, and I had to leave this group, like I said prior to. I was able to give back to Satan and the Infernal Empire all the things that they had given to me, and yet to do so. Even through great trial and error and much bravado, I did it. I've been through so much without the shielding of my mentor, Jenny. I simply pulled through all of these transitions with all my might, regardless, trying to soldier on like any occultist would do on the left-hand path. A few times I wanted to quit, even. Satan wisely told me to rethink it, not to do so, and to remain calm. Unknowingly of the priceless lessons Satan has defined my existence through my personal growing pains. This path is supposed to be hard. Hell, if it wasn't, then you're not doing it right. Gathering much from this new battlefield, I fought through the expression of poetry, of my art, music, whatever I could put my hands on. I simply had to express myself through these troubled sea of woes, because Satan is definitely a tough teacher, but for good reason. I had to reprogram myself from victim to being a causality of my personal upheaval. Approaching this religiously was the wrong idea, but I made it through by Satan's help, which he himself fixed my mindset throughout time itself. Keep that in mind, because you too may meet a particular demon who is tough and lean, and they want you to learn through growing pains. Sooner than later, Satan told me to get a black book and write all the magical experiences in my life, which took time for me, so I instead just allow Satan to do what he does best. And that he did. He inspired a friend that does not know anything about Satan himself. In fact, this friend of mine has given me the same thing he told me to get, my very own black book. In time, I transfer a lot of my writings on my smartphone due to simplicity. It worked and was very fun. Upon doing so, I suddenly realized a pattern in my life. I would every day, for some reason, write down my occult knowledge and speak aloud in my room about all the gifts I had received from the gods. Speaking out loud and speaking on a platform in front of millions of people, I would imagine myself helping others about the occult. All of this is what I was just thinking of, even in front of a mirror, every single day. Friends, and I mean that. Every single day, practicing, almost unconsciously doing so, having an urge to do this. I didn't know why I was so proud. I was just glowing with, I guess, satanic pride and wanted to personally tell people. In fact, I did, but not in a foolish way. For protective reasons, that is. I had to learn to respect other people's choices, especially in their Christian God. In other words, not to disrespect. For to express myself truly could bring unwanted attention, one must be safe, which I hold high above a lot of things in life. I had to express myself with no fear, though, nonetheless. To my surprise, people for the most part was open and loved my interest in the darker path than their own, despite being Christian or whatever. In time, Satan approached me to give me a roundabout answer, a puzzle even. One day, he appeared to me in human form, an Aryan man wearing all white, well-dressed and taller than myself. The tense atmosphere was looming. I felt almost a chill, but a familiar one, and I knew it was Satan. And Satan had to tell me something. And this is what he said.
Patch Dan. Patch Dan. I am the causality of your English right now. You must walk away from this putrid place. Embrace what you seek. You sought after for power and wealth. I am pushing you closer to your destiny.
I was simply flabbergasted and trusted myself that I could pull this off. I was glowing with happiness and wanted to do even more for this infernal devil, who just reassured me that I was going to get what I want. As a reminder, throughout the month, I had nothing but good signs of this abundance coming my way. No matter what it was, positive, it doesn't matter. Satan told me to forgive him. Yes, that's right. During that whole entire month, as a recap, it was positive. But he interestingly told me to forgive him for some reason. Perhaps by what he said to me with the aforementioned. I didn't understand why he said this, but he kept saying this repeatedly throughout the rest of the month. I had mixed feelings and hope to get answers. Satan directed me to another female who was very good with tarot cards. We will call her Oni-chan. The tarot reader was very telling and told me I have victory this month. Ani-chan also said through her cards I had to face my shadow self, and above all else, I would face my ultimate darkness. I personally call it my great severity. As you've been following thus far, you could tell, can't you? It all laid flat on the ground, and I just fell apart. I pulled through eventually, but it was the hardest thing ever in my life. I never thought Satan would even be capable of a lie, or seemingly one, that he would tell me, or anyone at that. He clearly led me to believe and wallow in this folly of mine. I went to Satan the ritual and told him why he lied to me as I spat into the air, forcing these words out of my mouth. Satan appears in human form, gazing at me with his piercing eyes. Behind his eyes was a crown of fire, it seems. Looking back at him hurt, and only having his better nature in mind. All I had was to wait until this moment, because leaving the occult was not an option. Satan, at that moment, told
I see that you are angry. Good. Speak with me then.
call it what you want it to call it. I'm simply upset right now. If I was someone else, I probably just left and quit. Now look at me. I'm standing here in front of you asking for something that you told me that I'll receive. So, what do you have to say for yourself?
Pain acts like a stimulus that promotes change, otherwise you will remain, never evolving. There is a lesson to be had with the paradox that there is success and failure. Everything has its polarity. Everything has a rhythm. Everything is relativity. By the law, the universe is orchestrated this way. It is holographic. You did not fail. Refinement is not just fixing a failed product, but it also applies to adjustment to a product that needs no fixing. To add or supplement an already good product, everything needs refinement. Regardless, what good is a snare if we only see it as evil? Does it not have good qualities for the one enjoying it and employing it for its own use to benefit? You will receive in time your wealth. I keep my promises.
Intermission. These hunkering bodies are sitting silently, draped with stained white sheets, falling upon the hard wooden cold floor. This room appears to be an age of World War I. You can sense the wisdom of this soul asylum. You can hear the motivational speaker echo within these walls, the confines of this prison. You could feel the hollow walls, the gas chamber. Oh, This is not a good place for those who are kept like little marionettes. Cause you could hear the memory drift by you if you know your history here in the asylum. Taking a goose step or two, they march for their pharaoh, his leadership. The decadence of this place is 5 lifetimes old here in the asylum. Covering them is the airy mystery of someone's hidden design, an artisan of their own labyrinth of tragedy here in the asylum. In this dismal playground forsaken by their captor, a deep sadness is pierced here. You can still taste her salt, you know. This is their 7th heaven, where they feel not at home, not at peace. He tormented them, you see. He tormented them so with his sensual dark romance, pleasing really just himself. They was tickled by how he spoke to them, and then in turn he was tantalized by their visage, by the shape of their feminine bodies. Oh, the heat between their thighs that he sought after, the softness of their porcelain skin, feeling like an addict doped up on dopamine. Blind memory is no fault of their own, so it then traveled to their hearts. All pretense could not bear what was a mystery in the damp, dusty hollows of this asylum. It then nestled sickly in their chest to rewrite any good they all once had. It must be nice to see the world through the eyes of this great feral architect, turning these women into his pretty little things. The evil then spoke within his ear. It spoke like a fiery little god, until she became one of his many pretty little things, a marionette for his dark pleasures. A temple of bloody totems, his fleshlights, that he masturbated himself with. Oh, the mute gloom atmosphere bellowing their rage from each homunculus to the other. Oh, do you see now in this asylum that this is where they would sleep? This is where they would wake. This is where they would have to force themselves to say this is home. Forcefully, that is. But no more than the dead dust hovering about this dark space they called mercy. Oh, that they called mercy. Because you see, here in this dark asylum, it was his mercy that he kept on telling them until he brainwashed these little marionettes that it was just that. Mercy. So much time went by that it is impossible to reason here in the asylum. Drops of red agony led me to a room teemed once of life. But now, it is a place of purgatory of the unsettled little pretty things. These precious little marionettes. I soon became a superstitious man, but it gave me comfort, some sort of hope, other than the cursed things that lay in these walls. Being pulled against my will, I could not go. My stubbornness alone could not bear this nightmare. So don't follow me here in the dark asylum. brushing my hand on the walls that felt sewn in the fabrics of time, sewn in this dark universal. You know, I never thought about it, but I saw fire giants as tall as they could be amongst this thick gloom, this formless, shapeless odor. Oh yes, it obfuscates in their practices here in the asylum. My invented gravity would keep my arms in place, my ligaments in place, because I had to embrace for the vast expanse here within the dark asylum, because nothing good was here in the asylum. Oh no, because time takes all things. You could tell by the scrapes and scrawls on the walls. Oh yes, these women, they made these walls here their art books. Every single one of them were an artist. As you can see, bloodied nails still stuck within the walls. These souls were held in orbit, so I fell on his heart in bed and dreamt faster. I dreamt of dreams of a 1,000 years of pain because I hated Christ's servant. So I cut out his eyes. Oh yes, I gorged out his eyes out so he can see the world the way I do. Then I threw his holy book, the Bible, into the bayou, yes, the watery deep, that cesspit, the swamp. Because I hated his lies. Oh, there was just so terrible, those little terrible lies. I call upon the great Mother Santa Muerte to take these souls away from me, because an uncaring God would allow them to die here alone in the dark asylum. Because oh yes, it was a world war once before, but now it's not. But these individuals were lost. And here I am, looking at the ghosts of these individuals, sad and wondering how could a man of God even preach about this or his God any longer. Recovery is not an option here in the asylum. The thick cosmic ebony darkness, yes, it blankets the room whole where I slumber here on this wooden hard bed. Yes, wooden, because it seems as if that I found the peace underneath the pillow. Perhaps this architect, this feral architect, was hunting his prey, his pretty little things, and they probably slipped one of them under the pillow so that they could protect themselves. Their souls are used as a nebula of some sort, a nebula that could protect me like a suit, or even perhaps a shield of the uncanny darkness that surrounded me here in the asylum. I am not like him, you know. I'm not like him who feasts upon their hopelessness, their virginity. No, not even upon their religion and their false god. No, he feasts upon their festering, booming heart, but not me. I am not so selfish to remain in memory. The glassy gel that spewed out of him was so translucent and pure, reaching out for anything and becoming indifferent, defiant. So I, feeling uninspired, like one of the false apostles that I am, writing in my unholy book, I wrote backwards in the apocryphal letters, in the spells that bind these souls that are now lost an epoch ago. Awaiting a promise, these young girls were awaiting a promise of a false king and a false light brimming high above the elastic sky. His brimming kingdom will destroy you, you see, if you do not simply obey. If you don't obey him, believe in his father's jealousy. But I continue to dream here on this hard bed. Yes, fading into the ether adrift, and tethered to a string of imagination. Crawling, oh yes, these monsters were crawling backwards, suffocating the inhabitants of this asylum. In my apocrypha, I see visions of the imaginary river coughing up dead men's bones onto the whitewashed tombstones, where there is no resurrection for those who didn't make it right here in the asylum. Oh yes, these suicidal individuals had to take their own lives because it was either him or them dying by his grasp, by his so-called dark romance, his love, to become one of his pretty little things. But no, they had to choose suicide. But you know, outside this asylum, as I look right through the stained, dirty glass, were tall trees like giants that bleed tiny little splinters that look like tiny little gods and babies into the forlorn yard. Opening up this fabled book, the pages are laced with subliminal consciousness. To love your neighbor, to treat others like yourself. Oh, how divine. Oh, how divine. But here in the baby's tomb in the asylum, they died for far less than a jealous God could ever hope to be. Interestingly, it seemed as if that this pharaoh architect was doing his will. 'Cause hey, was he not doing God's will in his jealousy? Who could tell the difference here in the asylum? Hearing children playing, smothered with gunfire, you can hear at a distance, like the Battle of Normandy, you can hear these gunshots going off all around you. You can hear the word hate. 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 Each gunfire firing all across you. Bodies hitting the ground, the sand, the water splashing all about. Oh yes, you can see it here in the asylum. You can see it all, 'cause each thumping sound of these little totem bodies shattering upon the earth. So easy we all could come all undone. Oh, so how easy, oh, just so how fragile. A life spilled from these little gods, these pretty little things. Now changing colors, red string bleeds like a stream into the great bayou. Oh yes, that swamp. Oh yes, down in the bottomless pit, that's where it revels most. Those pretty little things, those marionettes, are down below in this bayou. Oh yes, the watery deep, this pits. Oh yes. It covers them like fabric, like some sort of plastic, and printed in this plastic are suicidal faces and henchmen looking back at them, telling them about how their life was just so miserable and how they had to take their own lives, leading these young women to fall deeper and deeper to decadence and deeper to decay, faster and faster here in the asylum. But no, the man of God will tell you that God is love. But then again, I will tell you that it is God's love that this had happened to every single one of them. All you have to do is just read in his book. Now, waking up, I come to, but still feeling a little sleepy. I walk silently to the door and look from where I'm at in the distance. Oh yes, at this distance I see that the hallways themselves Oh yes, the bad took away the good here. Oh yes, sweetheart, you can see all those pretty little things running around from their captor as they do their little goose step, marching to the leader, trying to put them all asleep forever. Oh yes, a time, an epic ago. But you know what? I could visions of a pyramid of falsehood hovered up high above their little heads of innocence, come crashing down on their fucking heads. Oh yes, that's right, falling down on their fucking heads, putting them to sleep forever and ever. Because that is better than being held captive by this feral architect. Oh yes, cause that is God's old loving nature for you, His justice. But these little marionettes were sent to a violent grave. Their roots no one will know. And no, you will not follow me here in the asylum. So swimming in this sea of death, I could share their pain, their wisdom, not to do the same thing as them. Why fight for any god if you could just do things your own way to be independent? Oh, how they wish they were independent then. Oh boy, they wish. So we all may share their wisdom like I said before. Share it and pass it on like confetti falling from the sky. Oh, hopefully you can catch one and share. Oh yes, because by questioning whether the man of God really does save, might as well take your chances in catching confetti. But I know one thing for myself is that I will gobble up their terrible softness. I will eat it whole. Their sinews I will personally purge, baptized with fire. In his hiddenness, the beast lied within the beast where he lurked. Miles and miles of rage stretching across the great expanse of this dark asylum. You could see it. You could feel the power surging through your veins. It's just coursing through. Like it just coursed through the feral architect chasing these beautiful, pretty little things. Nor should these inhabitants feel unlucky, but only his love. Interpret that how you like. It's just a cruel carousel. But you know what, I want to be honest. I cry all the time for the good. For the good reason that no one else does. Not for these pretty little things. I may be just one of the many that want to cry for them. Because their God didn't. No one truly leaves that behind. Not lost to memory, not know how. Without questioning whether a loving God need another angel that fucking badly. All I can say is that when I think about all this, at the end of it all, I see myself inside the asylum. I fall to my knees as I hold my head, and I just scream to myself as I think about all the decadence that happened in the asylum. And all I can say to myself is just take me away. Take me away.
Chapter 3, Gifts. A month later, I lost my job. Then, my rent was way overdue at the same time. Satan's plan was to absolve me of these difficulties, beknownst to me at that time. However, I was miserable at my job and hoped for an exit, though some of the people at the company were okay. I even spoke about personal matters. I could feel a sinister wheel turning, for destiny was unfolding for me. Upon knowing that what was at hand was soon approaching, my demonic brethrens, glaring into this physical plan, devised a plan to change my life around and put me closer to what I placed all my power and all my ritual into. They had a sinister plan. This will change the course of my life, leading me to what I planned for. One day, I came to work keeping over some girl I liked, and why events did not turn out the way they did. It didn't help that the sky was dark gray and there was a little drizzle outside, a little rain. I went to the lounge area of my workplace and sat there waiting for my shift to begin. I always come early because why come late to a job? I just find it just disrespectful. A sudden feeling gripped me, and I looked up and saw the owner of the company walk by and noticed me, and then quickly moved his head away and then walked faster away from me. I was puzzled slightly, but didn't care much. And as the power gripping over me intensified, I just waited out until my shift started. Then there was an awkward silence about my coworkers. It only hit me that I was going to be terminated soon, that very day. I somehow knew, but placed it at the recesses of my mind. Then I saw my manager, who cried. She looked so pitiful. I knew what was happening. I was told to come into the office to speak with the general manager. She told me to sit down with the assistant manager and HR. Somehow I was poised, but knew this was the end. When HR finally spoke up, Satan came to me on the left of my hemisphere of my head, then my entire left side. Satan now spoke to me, saying,
This is no easy task, but yet I will give it to you anyway, for as gods know who are approved and those who will fail. Now take this scepter and crown, also this world a map. The confusion shall pass like a fog in a forest. This is your destiny, and you know this, so please take good care of it.
With that said, what was so interesting about this experience is that Satan allowed all my experience of manifestation videos that I watched, lectures that I listened to, all that I took to heart about magic and turning my life around so I may be better suited for wealth and abundance and to be a better practitioner of magic. I was unusually joyful, even in the face of me being terminated. Hell, if you ask me, that's a miracle within itself. At that event, I was not hurt as much as most people would be. Knowing Satan done this personally, and he is doing this for me and not to me, I walked away knowing I was in good hands. What followed was a lot of other challenges, but it is okay. It was something that I don't mind. I'm used to it, just like you would be if you are familiar with the dark, infernal beings. It soon passed because in this battlefield, it is not about image or whatever charlatans are fond of. Whatever I was going through after being terminated from my job was real. So was the pain, was real. All I had was to move forward. Those who pose would fall easily. Like I said, there's no room for charlatans. It's either you make it or you don't. These are the ones who may go to church after swearing to demons their devotion, but lacking the bravery to pull through such a pit of shit. This was opportunity for me. I knew I had to take that next step regardless. Now, this all happened January 6th of 2020, a month or two before the virus hit America and the rest of the world. Interestingly, the Infernal Devils were not done with my growing pains. Ani-chan was always in my dreams before and after these events. But this time I was directed by Satan to check out her videos on a site, and it was very helpful. Her video was certainly divine timing. I saw the beginning of 2020, but now viewing it had a greater effect on me. For now, I have to say this. I saw this video before, but never waited long enough to receive any answer from Ani-chan, for it was a live stream at the time. The message within the video was encouraging, to know that the demons guide you to a video and then they will help you. That's amazing enough. And that's something that I cannot forget about that video because of the encouragement. Soon after, same thing, more videos with Ani-chan and others being used by the demonic to encourage. This experience teaches me that no matter what you do, you can always make a difference no matter how small or large. You could always inspire and to encourage by your videos, by you being present and in others' life. Finally, it just came through and I realized Satan could not make it more clear for me. One video directly from Ani-chan was striking. She told me to do YouTube or else, well, Satan will not help assist me in my working for wealth and being a better magician. That was amazing within itself. A message that is clear and slightly pushy. If I wanted my shit, I had better create videos for the left-hand path. Not that it was difficult, but it was as if I was prepared for this my entire life, practicing magic. Considering my experiences from the Joy of Satan and other mentors, I had lots to offer. Remember, I had always wanted to speak to a large audience, not for glory, of course, but to gather the guts to speak about something people sheepishly afraid to do so. So I wanted to do so. And perhaps I could encourage the next person to do it. Because if it was something that was nerve-wracking for me, but yet fun, then someone else could see this, see the beads of sweat coming down my face, and they could do it too. And even those who are listening to this video, I encourage you, turn it into a fist, and you too, do YouTube if that encourages you and it vibrates with you, it resonates, it calls to you. Go ahead and do it for the Infernal Empire. I also would like to add is that besides that encouragement, we need to keep in mind that this was a moment I had never put much thought into. Never thought a platform like YouTube or anything. Here I was then asking Satan if this was his plan for me. I didn't have the funds at all, so I really wanted to see what would happen. Because after all, having a camera, lights, and all that other stuff is very expensive. But yet, notice, a day or so later, Satan told me to get up and check my mailbox. I did, and so I check in the exact amount to purchase what I need. I knew this was it, but I hesitated a little. Yet, fuck it. This is his will. I'm gonna go ahead and do it. I purchased everything to set up my own channel, and I unleashed everything that I had and I knew. I spent almost the rest of 2020 making videos encouraging people of like minds to the occult. Much of what I do is for Satan, and my videos had always showed what reflected in my life. My channel is more like an internet grimoire, if you will. I channel so much information from such demonic teachers such as Agaris, Lilith, Beelzebub, Lucifer, King Paimon, Sorath, and Clornak, and Belial, and the list just goes on. So you know, these are just a few amongst the many that I just can't name in this audio. But I'm so proud that I met every single one of them. And even by the names listed, I'm pretty sure you guys who are listening have definitely was of help to them as they were for you, changing your life around for the better. I don't know personally where I would end up if it weren't for these guys. They really were there for me. The atheist says different and believe I do not need the supernatural. However, it is the demonic that teaches I can accomplish my perfect will on my own. Yet, whomever barks at us, we should never shudder. Just focus on your results. When doing magic, that's all that matters, and you will have your dreams realized. This is from Sorath, who dictated these words himself onto me. Put simply, he's a man of little words, and he told me this. These are the gifts I have to offer to you. Focus on the results. Everything else don't matter. It doesn't matter how extreme. It doesn't matter how bizarre. It doesn't matter if you never experienced it. Focus on the results, because you cannot argue with that. Ain't that the truth? That is why I love working with the demonic. They use phrases that we already know within our lives, and it's integrated in how they're able to teach us. That is master teacher. That is someone that I really want to learn from. Not only do I thank Sorath and the rest of the demonic, I just want to tell every single one of you, please enjoy the gifts that the demonic have given you and teach others.